Thank you so much for tuning in to Mom Jeans, trying to fit into motherhood. All right, welcome back to another episode of Mom Jeans. We're so glad you're here with us listening. I'm Danielle. I am a stay-at-home mom, military spouse, and a boy mom. There we go. Almost had it.
You almost had it. I was like rooting for you.
Yeah,
and
you.
I am Lisa, and I am a girl mom to 2 girls.
Nice. Once my husband's out of the military, I guess I don't need to say military spouse anymore. Which is pretty soon, yeah.
You're going to lose a title. I've got to add one because you have 3 and I have 1. So I got to, I kind of say 2, but not, it's like the same. I'll work on that.
Yeah, I know. No, I won't be, I guess I'm always in spirit a military spouse, but my husband's about to get out. We're going to be moving back to the East Coast for a little bit, so I'm excited. We're actually joking through moving back with my parents just for a little bit to save money and until he's done with his internship, and then he can apply for jobs and then get a job when we can buy a house. But yeah, we're joking. They're like, "Oh, where are you going?" And they're like, "Oh, we're moving." My husband's like, "I'm moving in with the in-laws." So, really winning at life. Yeah. No, it'll be great. It will be a full house. My sister also still lives at home. So it's going to be them. So both my parents, my sister, my son, my husband, our 2 dogs and cat, and they have 3 dogs.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's going to be
That's
lot.
A full
and they're
house.
Indoor dogs too, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess most dogs are indoor dogs, but I did grow up we had outdoor dogs, and I thought that was normal, and then now I was like, I can't put my dogs outside. It gets cold. But, yeah, so we're excited, nervous, but we'll see what happens.
I think that's normal anytime you have a move coming. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, hopefully you have a lot of help with having your sister there and having your parents there, that maybe even just for like a date night or 2 would be nice.
Yeah, that'll be nice. I'm definitely looking forward to, there's not a whole lot of good restaurants here in Great Falls. Obviously, if you like barbecue, steak, we've got all of that, the very American style food. But did you hear my son?
Yeah.
No, he said. But yeah, I'm excited. We have Mexican food. We have like 45 minutes. You can get like better restaurants. I don't know. It's going to be exciting. So
nice.
It's bath time. So
yay, bath time.
Yeah, he's excited.
I love it.
Cool. Well,
it's
all right.
A guest.
Yeah, our guest.
He's our guest. Yeah.
So funny.
And in my life, I decided that I was going to rent a 4-book series. And I was like, I had no idea what it was, but it was suggested to me. So I was like, all right, I'm going to rent this from the library. Well, I get through the first book and I'm like, all right, cool. Like, this is a good book. I enjoy this. Let's see how the second book is. And I couldn't put it down. 3rd book, couldn't put it down. 4th book, couldn't put it down. Luckily, the series ends at 4, but I'm like losing sleep over it because I want to read instead of sleep. And I'm like, this is so not smart. Like, I'm already sleep deprived. This is not smart. But I will tell you, when I get a good book, it puts me in such a good mood. So even though I'm very sleep deprived, which usually really like wrecks me, I'm living on a high of like reading these books. And I don't want to tell everybody because they're super dirty, like super raunchy books. Brandon, like I was cuddling up to Brandon while I was reading it, and he was like reading it over my shoulder. He's like, "What are you reading?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it. It's not important. Don't worry about it."
That is so funny. Yeah. We've talked about before. I'm not into the spicy, but I did.
I love it.
That Agatar series, and last one, I was like probably blushing when I was reading it, and I had it on audio too, because like if I read at night, I'm like falling asleep, but I would read it. But sometimes I'll listen to it, and I think that's worse. I'm like,
I think I would. iPod. That's a good point. I've never listened to any of them. I wonder how that would be. I feel like I'd be awkward. I feel like I'd be really uncomfortable, like laughing and giggling. A car pulls up next to me and be like, I hope you can't hear this.
I know. Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, I like the action part. I'm like, okay, like we can get through this. I don't know. It was really good. I will say I had a nightmare about the end part of it. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but like I did have a nightmare about that. I was like, whoa, but they were good. I am glad it's over. I'm starting to read my normal stuff. I actually read a historical fiction book for book club called The Frozen River, and I've never read a historical fiction. So
interesting.
A lot of times it's like based on true events. So when I read the reader or the what's the end where the author's note, about 75% of what she wrote was true, and then she talked about the parts that wasn't and why she changed it. And so it's very interesting, and it was about a midwife in the 1700s era. Ooh. And so that was really cool. And basically how like these doctors from Harvard, you know, since they have a degree, they knew what they were talking about over these midwives who've been like delivering babies their whole life. And it was about like all sorts of stuff. And there was a murder. So trying to figure out who done it. But yeah, it was all based on true events. And it was really cool. And it was very interesting how like these doctors were quick to, I guess, judge these women. Like they didn't know what they were talking about. And a lot of women didn't know how to read back then either. But the main character was Martha Ballard, and she's a real person. And her husband taught her how to read and write. And so pretty cool.
It's such an interesting thing because there was a good amount of time that I was really into historical fiction, but like it borders with me. Like I can't remember the name of the book. Brandon makes fun of me all the time because I never know the name of the book that I'm reading and I never know the author. But I read a historical fiction and I think it was called Dust Bowl or something, and it ruined me. Like it was so dark. But it was like captivating. So I kept going on it. And I really burned out on historical fiction because of that. And so I was like, yep, let's go back to my fluffy, raunchy novels rather than go through the tough stuff, because sometimes they're so great and I love the historical fiction. And sometimes it's just like, I don't want to see all these murders and these people being, treated poorly. So anyway.
Yeah. And it definitely was tough too, because the doctor who came in town was like, oh, I know how to deliver a baby. And he ended up killing both of the babies and one had dislocated like limbs and stuff. I'm sorry, this is probably trigger warning, but it was just like, and he was saying that he knew what he was doing and made her like trying to tell her that she didn't know what she was doing. She's like, I've delivered over 50 babies, and like she hadn't her record, she didn't lose any babies unless they were like stillborn already, but like born alive, they were, I don't think she lost a mother or a baby. Wow. And those were like hard times back then.
Yeah. Too. That's amazing.
So, yeah. And it's just weird how like, I don't know, men weren't in the room when it happened either, and how that has changed. But they were always surrounded by their like the other women of their lives, like their friends, their sisters, their mothers. I kind of do miss that part. I feel like that could be empowering to have like your female like loved ones there. But
that's a good point.
Yeah. But I feel like your husband should be there too. Like, this is what you did to me. This is what I have to go through.
This is what you did to me.
Yeah, no, I feel like they appreciate you a lot more. I hope so anyways.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Most men do. But yeah. But anyways, that was not our topic.
No. I think that's such an interesting point, and something we definitely have kind of talked about a little bit of like how different things were with our parents. And like, Brandon's mom says all the time to me, like, you don't understand how good you have it. Like he's such a good dad about Brandon. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know. And she's like, back, then our husbands weren't that active. Like they weren't changing diapers as much. Like not all of the husbands would change diapers or, get on the floor and be great with them. And you guys have it so different now.
Yeah.
I'm glad I live in this era than past eras for sure.
Yeah, same. Because that's a lot. Like I feel like we're already like the main caregivers a lot of times just by default, because that's who our kids tend to like gravitate to. Yeah. And yeah, I couldn't imagine having that all the time with no help. And
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, thankful for our husbands for sure. But
Yep.
in this time,
Yes.
more like equal. I'm glad we can read and write and do all the things that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine if I couldn't read with how obsessed with reading I am. Like I can't even imagine. I keep calling it book on tape, but audiobooks are like a new. I've decided that that's how I'm going to try and approach nonfiction. So the book that you were telling me about with Dr. Amen, Amen, whatever. I got it as a audiobook, not a book on tape, audiobook, because I figured like I wouldn't fall asleep then and I'd actually get through the book. I've had to speed it up 1.25 times because it's the guy who reads is kind of slow. But I am like, anytime there's like facts and truth and numbers, I want to hear that. But if it's like, I want to read most of the time if it's very light and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah. Same. I feel that way too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we dive into our topic?
Yeah. What do we have today?
Well, since the holidays are coming up, and I thought I'd pull a Reddit about gift giving and boundary setting with grandparents. Just because it's a hot topic. And sometimes we have too many toys. So I went to Reddit and I pulled a what do we call it? A thread? Did we learn what it's actually called? We're not pros on Reddit.
I'm gonna do it. Maybe by our 1-year anniversary, I'll get it. It's coming up.
Right. All right. Oh, and this one was 7 years ago, so it's not. It's not new. Yeah. All right. So I wonder if our parents felt this way. No, probably not. Okay. All right, it says some backstory here. I have a mother-in-law with boundary issues. Oh, am I supposed to say Reddit? Let's see. It's from Monica Fueller Geller. All right, so it's a name. All right, and this one is all I want for Christmas is grandparent boundaries with gifts. All right. So it says some backstory here. I have a mother-in-law with boundary issues when it comes to gift giving. My husband's parents are very financially well off, and my mother-in-law loves to shower people with gifts, which on the surface is nice, but lately it's been that every time we go back home to visit, since we live a few hours away, we are showered with gifts, including our daughter, who is 5 months old. My husband and I agreed that this is overkill, and we don't want our daughter to associate going to grandma's house with getting spoiled and getting presents. We're trying very hard not to raise a spoiled child. We know that her first Christmas, everyone is going to want to shower her with gifts, but long term, we don't want that because of the habit. We also don't want to accumulate too much stuff in the house. The only reason I can keep any sense of clean order as a working mom is because we maintain pretty I have trouble with this word.
Minimalistic.
Minimalistic house. Thank you. Is it rude to express to all the grandparents, not just the mother-in-law who has the boundary issues, that we don't want our daughter to be spoiled for Christmas? I considered sending out an email with the guidelines we're hoping to keep. In our discussion, my husband and I have come up with asking them to check with us before purchasing big gifts in case we don't want it in the house or plan to buy them for our daughter ourselves. Obviously, as a baby, it's not a big deal, but in the future, we were thinking along the lines of a first bike, a playhouse. We also talked about next year or maybe into setting limits on how many gifts to give. We really don't need her getting, I think it's like 6,401,000. It's a big number of toys. Finally, we discussed that if anyone asks us our daughter or what our daughter wants for Christmas, we'll focus on experiences as gifts, like tickets to the zoo or a children's museum, rather than too many toys and things. I don't want to be rude at all, And the reason I'm hesitating to bring it up with the grandparents is I was raised to believe that you get what you get and you don't get upset. I think it's you get what you get and you don't throw a fit, but
I've
that's
never
just
heard
me.
that.
Yeah. And that you should be grateful for any gift someone wants to give you and say thank you and move on. Am I overthinking this? Is this an okay boundary to set? Has anyone had success with Christmas gifts boundaries with grandparents before? And how do I go about it? So, what are your thoughts?
I have so many thoughts. First of all, I feel like this could have been me writing that when Hannah was that age. I mean, she was 11 months when Christmas came around, but we've talked about this too, like, and I'm not putting this just on my in-laws, I'm putting this on my parents too. They play by their own set of rules. And as much as I can sit there until I'm blue in the face and say, please don't do this, please don't do this, please don't do this, they do it anyway. So great question too, because my mother-in-law sent me and Brandon a link and was like, can I get this for Hannah for Christmas? And I was like, first of all, I really appreciate that she asked, right? Because she knows me. Like she knows I'm the problem, even though Brandon will stick up for me and like be like, Mom, I don't want that. We don't want that for Hannah. She's just convinced it's me. And like Brandon doesn't care, which sometimes is very true, but he also agrees with me on some of the crazy stuff that I go through. But so she sent like a kid's iPad as an idea. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And I said to Brandon, I was like, the funniest part was my mom a week later asked if she could buy the exact same thing. And I was like, we have told you both many times that we don't want our kids in front of screens. We're just not there yet. We are happy with where we're at. We're, on occasion we will let her, we'll sit with her and watch like a movie for 10 minutes. And even that, we're like, I like get so itchy and I get so uncomfortable. And I know that a lot of people believe in that kind of stuff, right? But then if my in-laws watch her, all rules go away. She eats ice cream. She has donuts. She has all the stuff that I like. They know I adamantly don't want them to give her. They were giving her pop last time, soda, if you will. And I was like, I was furious. And luckily the one time Brandon caught his dad giving her pop and he's like, it was the first time I've done it. And it was just a little bit. It was just the end of the bottle. And Brandon goes, and it's the last time, Dad. I mean it. Like, stop doing this. Like, we tell you guys all the time, please stop giving our kids these foods. And you do it anyway. And it's really disrespectful to us as parents. Well, we're grandparents and we can spoil them how we want when we're with them. And I'm like, that's really hard for me because you know what happens? Like, I was just listening to a podcast that's like, the more it was about, I think we talked about this last time, but when rats were exposed to the foods that we get in America, those foods were taken away, they essentially starved themselves to death because they didn't want to go back to eating real foods because their bodies were like, no, this stuff stinks. Like, I don't want that stuff. And I get so probably unrealistically afraid of that I'm like, I don't want Hannah to start eating Doritos. I don't want her to start eating all of that stuff.
Right.
But I don't know how to stop it. Like I keep telling my in-laws, like, please stop doing this. They are respectful of the presents. I'll tell you that. And I am very, very thankful that they'll ask before making the big purchases. Like even I had Brandon call his sister and be like, hey, what are we doing for gifts for her kids? Because her kids have a lot of toys and they have a lot of stuff and they have iPads. And so they would prefer to be on their iPads and to be with their toys. And I'm like, I just don't want to contribute to more toys if they're never going to play with them. And Brandon's like, yeah, I'm totally with you. And I'm okay if the girls don't get gifts because Aubrey's too young, doesn't matter. And Hannah, I think if you get her one really good thing, then she can focus on that one thing instead of like, oh, I have 3, 4, 5 gifts and I don't know where her brain gets like so frazzled when there's too much in front of her.
Yeah. And then also like some kids have like several grandparents. Like if you have a product of divorce,
yeah.
So that's a lot of kids, and if you have aunt, uncles, like that all adds up.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's this blog I read, and it's from More Than Grand, and she's like a grandma who like does TikTok, but she has this whole article that we can post for you guys. But she was talking about like 75% of parents are like stressed about receiving like too many gifts or like the boundaries with grandparents. And then she was talking about like the math of when you add it up, if you're getting one or two gifts, like if a grandparent's getting one or two gifts for that child plus the other grandparents, or if they had like 4 sets of grandparents and aunt uncles, like quickly that can add up to like 20 some gifts. I'm not going to do the math for you, but it's going to be a lot. So I was like, oh, that's interesting, like perspective. So maybe you just like,
great point.
Yeah, maybe this person, I mean, I know this article or the Reddit I read was from 7 years ago, but I think it's still relevant for us today.
Totally.
Yeah,
totally
maybe
relevant.
setting a limit like 1 or 2 or a certain size. I had a wish list.
I did too.
Like these are the things I want to buy, Weston. And so, but I can't buy it all or I'm going to go broke. So if like you want something off this list, like go for it. And it's easier too because we don't live close, so shipping is expensive, and so that way they can just get it from Amazon or wherever, and it's sent here, and we'll wrap it up and put it under the tree. So, both my in-laws and my parents, I think we're good about that. I know last year I went home, and so my parents did give us a lot of extra gifts because we were physically there, and they wanted to open stuff. I was like, man, how are we going to take this stuff back? We had to bring it. We had to literally have a whole other bag and check it. Luckily, when I fly with Ryan, since he's military, we get to check those for free, or else I've been like, all right, you got to give me like $35-$40 to send this stuff back. No, I wouldn't be like that. But it gets too much. And I want my house to be cluttered.
I used to, even when I didn't have kids, go home, and my mom loved gift buying, and like, no offense to her, but she never was really in tune with what we really wanted. So she'd get us a lot of stuff she found on like Facebook or Instagram and like looked like a cool idea. And I would just leave all that stuff at her house. And I felt bad because I know she was like, oh, I really thought about these and they were like really good gifts. But we were like, I'm just never going to use them. And I would just leave them behind because same thing. Like, and that was when I used to have to fly. And like, I'm like, I'm not checking a bag for this. I'm not flying. And it's like, I would tell my mom all the time, like, I gave you a list. Like, can you stick to my list? She's like, but that's so boring. Then you know what you're getting. I'm like, but there's a reason I have that list,
Right. I agree. And then also where she said that, should I send an email? I probably would advise against sending an email. That seems too passive aggressive.
Yeah.
I'd probably just have that. And then you take a tone, I think, with like email or text. So whether you meant it or not.
That's an interesting question too. Like, how do you, I mean, I know your in-laws are great.
They're awesome.
But yeah, they are so awesome. But like, have you ever had to approach them in situations that you were uncomfortable with?
Yeah, probably Craig about putting the toilet seat down. That's like the only thing. I think that's the only pet peeve that they've ever done. And if you're listening, guys, I love you. but
how did you approach it?
Well, I just let it go until Weston was born and he's putting his hands in the toilet bowl. So I'm like, Craig, you got to keep it shut or he's going to like drop stuff in it. He's like, oh yeah, okay, got it. And he
so stopped. You would say, so you said something to him because I know like a lot of people who wouldn't talk to their in-laws. Like they are not comfortable talking to their in-laws. Like I let it go for 10 years. I've known them for 10 years. That's a long time.
So this just now started but I had the perfect excuse because Weston will put his hand into the toilet.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
That's about the only thing. I love you, Craig.
I love it. So. I think that's such a, like, yeah, I think that's an interesting, I would never send an email, but that's not the relationship I have with them. Like I text with them or I'll send my in-laws like texts individually and be like, hey, This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking. You know, I was actually, that's so funny that you were saying it, because I was just thinking about how to approach my mother-in-law about the fact that sometimes I wonder how like bad we come off in this podcast. Like so hoity-toity. I do not want her to buy fruit that's not organic, like blueberries. Like I was talking about how I was listening to a thing today about how like you're better off not eating blueberries than eating non-organic blueberries, because the pesticides on them and the junk on them is so bad for you, that I'm like, how do I approach that? Because they already, right, like we've talked about them thinking we're crunchy, and like, you know, they already are like, you're crazy. But I'm like, I don't want my kids eating it.
Right.
Unless like I've looked into it, and it, you know, like Brandon even the other day was like, oh my gosh, blueberries are on sale. So I got 3 cartons of them. They were $1.88. I said, well, they were not organic then if they were $1.88. And he goes, oh man. I was like, yeah, like it's just like, you know, and that's the hard part. Like food is my biggest challenge with my in-laws. Gifts they've started to really respect, which I really appreciate that. I'm like, throw money into an account for them, right? Like throw, like, I don't know, buy them one thing. If you have to buy them something and it needs to be like, can fit in my pocket, it needs to be small, right? Because I don't want to, same thing. Our house is small. Our house gets really small fast when we get too many toys. Like when we've had parties for the girls for their birthdays, it's no gifts. And if you absolutely have to bring a gift because you cannot get over it, I need a book or clothes. And those are the only things that we will accept. And I don't feel bad about it. And like, even for us for Christmas, we haven't done anything the last this is going to be Hannah's, I cannot do math. It's so bad. This will be her 3rd Christmas. I don't know what Christmas it is. It's her 2nd Christmas. I don't know. But we haven't done gifts for her for any of Christmases before, because we're like, she's not going to know. And we're not going to make a big deal of it. And now like all the people around us are like, oh, Santa, Santa, Santa. And she's like, Santa. She doesn't know what it means, but she like goes nuts when we say Santa. And so it's like, so I bought for Christmas this year for her, I bought her and Aubrey a table for them to sit at to eat.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, that's the kind of thing that I want. Like even Brandon's like, what do I get you for Christmas? I'm like, please don't buy us gifts. Like, let's buy experiences, right? Like we want to go on trips this summer and we want to go do all these things. Like, let's get ourselves experiences instead of getting ourselves things.
I like that. We probably should start doing that. Because I'm like, let's not do a whole lot. And then we end up doing a whole lot. But like I said, I've talked about before, my parents definitely overdo the Christmas. Like I loved it, but also like when I got older, I'm like, man, y'all did a lot. And it's because they didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
And so they're overcompensating for what they didn't have. And now I'm like,
I was wondering,
don't buy anything for us. Like, yes.
What was your childhood like for gifts?
So many gifts.
So many, really?
But here's the thing too. The reason why we're already done Christmas shopping, because we'd be in the mall like the day before Christmas Eve, or sometimes even Christmas Eve.
Yep.
All day till like, all day at the mall. My mom shops, and I was so tired and wanted to go home. And the mall was an hour from our house, and it's just like exhausting. And I just remember like hating, like stressing, like, oh, they would just buy and then put it in the trunk. And then they wouldn't wrap the presents until the last day. And when I stopped believing in Santa was when I started to have help wrap presents.
Oh, no.
Christmas Eve to put them all under the tree. And it would just literally come out the whole living room. I mean,
wow.
I will say I was very lucky and very privileged and like got usually what I wanted. I mean, not like a new car or anything, but I did. I got a PlayStation. I got a Canon camera. Like I got some pretty cool gifts. But now looking back, for me, when we're talking about cycle breaking, like last episode, it's like, that's one thing I don't want to overcompensate, like overdo it, just kind of minimal.
That's it. And that's an interesting point too. Like I've said that to my mom, because my childhood was a very interesting childhood as far as gifts go. So my parents either had zero money, so we wouldn't get anything. We would get like a shared gift for the four of us, and it was not anything glamorous, right? Like, and that's okay. Like,
yeah.
But then the next year, to compensate for it being so bad last year, my mom would go nuts, and we would open 10 gifts, and I'd be like, I'm bored. Like, I am
Yeah.
bored of this by this point, right? Like, I just don't want to open gifts anymore. And it's like funny because I do remember, like, the hard part was that my mom's side of the family all got together and every Christmas Eve. And we, for a while, they would buy, each grandkid got a gift from each family. And my mom has 3 siblings. So we would get a ton of gifts, and there were 9 grandchildren. So my parents not having money and trying to find a way to get money to my cousins so that, or like gifts to my cousins so that nobody knew what was going on. And then Dan and I would get home and we wouldn't get anything. And we would be like, those were actually like our best Christmases though. Like those were like ones where we were like, we don't need anything. It's okay. Like we're going to be okay. Like we don't need anything. You guys pay for Dan's hockey and my softball and you make it work. And then the years where we would get a million things. And then I am like the worst. If I don't like a gift that you give me, And my brother's like, can't you just fake it to make her feel better? Like, why can't
that doesn't seem like you?
No, it's not me. And I'm like the worst. So like, I'll open something and I'll be like, I don't even say anything. And my brother's like, that's so mean. Like, just wait until that happens to you. I'm like, oh, it's happened to me plenty of times. Like, I totally missed the mark on gifts. And I don't feel bad. But he's like, yeah, except that you do it for every gift mom gives you. And I'm like, because I give her a list and she never follows the list. Just give me one gift on the list, please.
That's so funny. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. Well, I did read another Reddit. I'm not going to read it to you, but basically it was the opposite. But I guess she has teenagers now, but she's tired of people asking what to get her kids. She's like, literally, you can just ask them. Like, why is this put on me? Like her parents were like, what do the kids want? What should I get them? And she's just probably mommed out and doesn't want to make any more decisions. And like, you figure it out. Like they're 15, 16, go talk to them. You live next door. That's basically what this Reddit was. So she didn't want to make any decisions for the gift, like what to get them. She's like, I don't even know what to get them. So good luck.
It's so interesting too. Like Brandon and I struggle too, because when we want something, we buy it. We buy it for ourselves. So like, I do understand the sentiment of wanting to get you a good gift and like to think about like, oh, this came from my heart. Like I thought of you when I saw this gift, or I thought of this gift for so long, like I said, I have a running list of things for Brandon that I want to get him, because like he'll say something in July and I'll be like, I'm never going to remember that by Christmas. So I write it on a list like, oh, well, when Christmas comes around, let's see if that's still applicable. And I'll get to like 10 things by the time Christmas comes around to decide what to get him. And it's nice to have that list, but it's like, like, do we really need all of this stuff? I don't know. No. I struggle with it.
No, and I'm trying to like get rid of some stuff too. So I have been seeing, I don't know if you've been seeing it, it's a trend, but like I've known some people that every year before Christmas comes, they have their kids donate like a whole trash bag of like toys and clothes and all sorts of stuff. There's a fancy name that they were saying, but I don't know. But basically just, or something cute that they called it, but put in a bag and then they give it to like kids like in need and donate it or whatever. So that's kind of a good idea. But if you're trying to declutter.
That's a great idea. I mean, I've gotten to the point, like, so we have a little library at the end of our street, and I always tell Hannah, like, if you take a book, we have to go bring a book back, like one in, one out. And I've tried to start doing that now with clothes. Like if I get new clothes, I'm trying right now, because there are so many clothes in my closet that I don't even wear, like 1 in, 2 out, just to be like, get the stuff out. Yeah. But you sit there and you're like, oh, what if I need this shirt that I haven't worn in 13 years? Like maybe I might need it. The situation might come up,
Listen, I have this shirt that I wore in softball, and it's actually my brother's old shirt. And it's like, I cut the sleeves off because in softball, that was like the style in practice, like your sports bra and your sleeveless shirt. and it's like the No Fear like brand. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I sat it next to the trash can to throw it away a couple weeks ago because it's literally come from my house to like college to now here, and here I am 33 and I couldn't get rid of it. So I stuck it back in my drawer. I'm like, when will I ever wear this? Maybe if I'm like, yeah, have another baby and breastfeeding, I could just whip it right out.
That's right.
I'm like, why would
Whip it out the armhole?
Yeah. Oh, I thought I was so cool with my cutoff shirts at practice. And our coach never said anything. Like, we're in our basically our sports bra. It's a way to get away with just wearing your sports bra, which the track girls got to do, but not the softball girls.
I remember that was a big thing. I do remember that. That's really funny because that's what Brandon gave me some of his t-shirts. And I was like, yeah, you can't get rid of these because like they're great for when I was pregnant. They were great. And I still have them in my drawer. And I'm like, what am I going to do with these? Or like, or the whole, oh, I'm going to lose weight to get back into this outfit. Like, get out of here. You're not losing that weight. Like, get it out of here. But I also
and if you do, just go buy new clothes because they're probably going to be outdated anyway.
And you deserve those new clothes if you're going to lose that weight, right?
Yeah.
I know my mom is a very sentimental person and holds on to like everything that came from family in the past. And she's like, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? I'm like, get it out. I don't want anything. I don't want anything. No. You know, and like even Brandon sometimes like, and I get it. He gets really overwhelmed when we have like a ton of clutter. And I'm like, you know that we're like better than 90% of people out there with kids our age. Like as far as their clutter level, it's so low. But to us, it's clutter because that's what we have. And you're like, oh man, it's like, it's hard. It's really hard. Because then I also am like, oh, do we have the right toys for them to like keep them engaged and keep their brains working the way they should? Like, I don't know. Yeah. It's hard though.
It is. Well, I did read this. There's another article here that I have up going back to like why grandparents are buying too much gifts. So it's a whole article, the mummybubble.co.uk. So that's why it's mummy, not mummy.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But it's like reasons the overindulgent grandparent may have become too much for you. And when it's like overwhelming your child, so like just with so many toys and new stuff, like you're overwhelming them. You can't cope with all the toy boxes and overflowing like toys. And I'm just paraphrasing here. You feel like it detracts from other gifts. So if you're getting 20 gifts and you like wanted to give them like one good gift, it really distracts from that. Quantity, not quality. You're worried that's become you versus grandparents with gift buying competition. So, and then it goes on with a couple more. And then it says, why do grandparents spoil their grandkids? It says there's a number of reasons why grandparents love to spoil their grandkids. Number one, they love them. And, you know, some people's love language is gift giving. And so, yeah. It says shopping has drastically changed. I will say it's like easier to buy things now, you know, with Amazon and online shopping. They're in the parent mindset. So this says grandparents see grandchildren as being just like their own kids. The love is certainly just as strong. So as such, they may see themselves as the main present buyer. And then stuff equals love. I think we probably know people like that. Like me, like more, I don't know. Some people love giving gifts, and the more stuff they have, maybe the more love they feel. Giving feels good, which is true. Like if you do find that good gift because you were thinking of someone, like makes sense. And then they don't see them enough. So maybe they're trying to compensate.
Sure.
Yeah. And then it says, what do you do when your grandparents buy too many gifts? And it says, have like a gentle conversation. If your home is bursting at the seams, you're really concerned with the excessive gift giving, is teaching your kids to be spoiled, then try having a chat. It may be that grandparents have no idea they've been going over the top. After all, there's no manual or law that sets down exactly how many gifts you should buy for someone you love. And before having the conversation, have an idea of what a sensible limit would be. Saying it's too much may not resolve the issue in a way that you'd like.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so it says be specific with your boundaries. So
I like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. just start by generally introducing the issue. And it just kind of goes on. And we can post this article too. I don't want to read it all to you, but and then suggest they could contribute to their grandkids' savings, like you had mentioned.
Yep.
So Ryan's grandma actually will put money into Weston's account, which is cool.
Nice.
Divert gifts. So you can, instead of having them open in front of the grandparents, or you could open it. It's saying like you can open it, decide whether you want to keep it or donate it before your kid even sees it. So kind of deciding for yourself. You could, and I don't know, if your parents don't live close, they're not going to know. I mean, maybe, but they're really not. Send some gifts to the grandparents' home. So
I've done that with my mom. I've sent stuff back with her. I'm like, can you keep that down at your house so we have that to play with when we come down there? And she's like, I don't want clutter in my house. I'm like, wow. Weird. That's strange.
So that's basically what it says. And then rotate the toys and regift.
Yeah.
Sell unwanted toys. And then it goes on about how to tell your grandparents to stop spoiling your kids. So be clear that you're grateful. State that your child and you are extremely grateful for their gifts. But just got to have that chat heart to heart. And then hopefully they understand those boundaries, because again, they might not even know. But sometimes I do feel like they take it personal,
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah. And then the last one just says, like, how many gifts should grandparents give their children? So it says a sensible limit is no more than 4 to 5 presents per child. This would include one large gift, for example, like a Lego set, and then 4 small gifts, such as like socks, PJs, small puzzle. You said a book. That'd be a good one. So, yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still a lot.
4 to 5 is a lot.
Yeah.
So you set especially like you said, you have 2 sets of grandparents, and we only have 2 sets of grandparents. Like, can you imagine? Like, can you imagine if you had 4? Like,
no. Actually, I know.
That's a lot of gifts. Oof, no,
right?
I wouldn't deal well with that. But I agree with you. Like, we do the rotating toys thing, and we have like a closet with some toys in them, and I have not been good at rotating, so they've had the same toys out for like 2 months. But yeah, like I think that's an interesting alternative as well, is to be able to do that. But it is hard, like if they open in front of everybody, your kids do, and they see those gifts. Like Hannah's starting to develop a memory of like, where is that? Where is that toy? Where is that thing? And like, or like we've had balloons before and they pop, and she'll the next morning wake up and she'll just go, I popped my balloon. And we're like, that happened last night. Like she just loses it, She gets so upset, and you're like, oh, this is going to get harder now when you want to control these things. It's going to be a struggle.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, I feel like my parents have good boundaries. Like they ask before they buy things now, because in the beginning when they were buying things, I'd be like, take it back. And my mom's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, take it back. Like I'm not giving my kid this many gifts, Mom. And a lot of them are like things that we don't like to give them. Like, and maybe this is selfish, but like I get really overstimulated easily. So if there's a lot of noise and flashing lights, like I am like panic. Like I can't have that in my house because I go crazy, and I don't, I don't know, sensory overload. So please don't buy those gifts, Yeah.
Yeah. My friend found that out. We were at her house, and she listens to this podcast, so she might hear it, but she has this crab, and I thought about getting the crab, like you saw, like when they're doing tummy time, that goes back and forth.
Oh.
And Weston loved it, but it played the song. I was like, does that music, no one was touching it for like 10 minutes. And I just randomly was like, does the music cut off? She's like, no, not unless you cut it off. But I don't think she heard it, and I did. And I was like, I think it's just me. I do get like overstimulated. I don't know why I'm that way with noise. And I think her mom was like, oh, you got to get this for Weston. And she was like, she can't deal with the noise. I'm like, you're right. I can't. But
we have a toy that Hannah had when she was like a little baby it's like that piano, and it sings songs on a rotation, and I still like wake up from those songs, and I'm like, I never let Aubrey use it because I hated it so much from my days of staying at home with Hannah, and I like went nuts. And I'm like, yeah, like we listen to music constantly with the girls. Like they listen to music all the time. It's awesome. But I also am very selective. Like, okay, I've hit my limit of listening to Coco Melon radio. I need Disney radio at least now. Like, let me switch over to different kids. And then, okay, it's Christmas radio. And Hannah will be like, Coco Melon. I was like, nope, mommy needs a turn too. I need a turn because I can't. I'm tapping out. Yeah. Sorry.
We're not there yet. Usually I'm listening to just my music, like Noah Kahan. Some like really sad music, like heartbreak music. I'm happily married, but I love a good like breakup sad song.
You do?
I don't know why. It used to fill it like back in the day. I don't know. Music for me was like,
oh, I know that feeling.
It like pulls me back to a memory. It's not like that anymore, I guess. Just different.
But really interesting that you say that, because I had two bands in high school that I like, they would like knock the wind out of me. I just loved their music so much. Yeah. And I have since high school, haven't had that experience. And recently Bryce and McKella came over and were playing this radio station on Pandora. And I was like, oh, I really like this. So I started listening to that station because I asked them what it was. And
was it Cocktail Hour?
No, it was
that's the one.
I think it was Slightly Stupid Radio. Okay. And I think the name of the band is Stick Figure is on that a lot. Yeah. And there are two songs that they have that they like hit me, and I'm like, holy cow! Like I haven't felt like this in forever. I love it. Yeah. I love it. I love that feeling. Like it's like suffocating, but in a good way.
Yeah,
if that's possible.
Yeah. That makes sense. I love music. Yeah. But I like my music from back in the day. That's not old. Yeah. Some of this new stuff. Unless it's like folky, but I'm like, I like folky. I don't know.
Brandon's in a Britney Spears phase right now. He's just listening to Britney all the time. And I was like, when did you ever do this? He's like, in college when it would like come on at a party. And he's like, but I was never, he's just
Ryan is
singing
more
Britney all over.
Girl bands than I'd like to admit, like more than me. Yeah, I was like into the boy bands and like Britney Spears, but he knows a lot of Christina Aguilera songs. He knows Mandy Moore songs. He knows like, so I'm like, I don't even know this artist, and he'll be singing it, and I don't know. I was like, I don't know, like, were you just jamming out to like these like teeny bopper like girl music like in your bedroom? And it's like maybe.
Yeah, but I think they were like crushing on them, crushing on those girls. Yeah, because I was crushing on the boy bands. Oh
yeah, for sure. I'm not making fun of them. I just think it's funny because.
Oh no, I know, I totally, because you don't picture that. I especially like Brandon. If you ever meet him or see him on here, the podcast, you'll be like, "What, Brittany? No way!" Yeah. So yeah. Well, this was a good topic.
Yeah. So let us know.
I like that.
If you have trouble with boundaries with your parents or your in-laws on gift giving, because it seems pretty normal. I would love to know actually from our parents, like if there were boundaries. Probably not. It was just a different day and age, and I don't know. Things weren't as accessible, I feel like.
I'd be interested to know that too, because my grandparents always put into an account for us. They bought us stocks, and I was able to travel when I got out of college because of the stocks that they bought us while we were kids. And I was like, I can tell you, I can remember one scarf my grandma bought me over the 20 years of my life of Christmas presents. I couldn't tell you anything else she ever bought me, but I can remember those trips that the money that they saved away for me helped me with.
That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah. So anyway,
cool. Well, thanks for listening. Tune in next week. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
And that wraps up another episode of Mom Jeans, trying to fit into motherhood. Thank you again so much for listening to us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider giving us 5 stars so other mothers out there like you can find us and listen. If you would like, you could follow us on any of our socials at Mom Jeans the Podcast. If you have questions, would like to send us your birth story, or give us suggestions or things that you would like to hear, please email us at hello@momjeansthepodcast.com. See you next week.